Moving on to 3.3, but first we need to do the bell problem, solve the system. If you notice, the first one is already solved out for x, so I would suggest using substitution method by substituting in 2y plus 3 for x in this equation. Solve it out and get your ordered pair for your solution, which you should get -9, -6. 3.3 will be systems of inequalities. Remember, inequalities means shading, and we will be graphing those. When we're graphing systems of linear inequalities, you must graph each inequality in the system. My suggestion would be to use different colored pencils for each inequality so you know which one's which. And we have to identify the region that is common for all the graphs. So our first one, it's already solved out for y for us, so we just have to graph our lines. The first one I'll do in red. We have y greater than -2x minus 5. So I'm going to put that over 1 so we don't forget to move our point over. So our y-intercept is -5, and our slope is -2 over 1. So I'm going to go up 2, and to the left 1, up 2 to the left 1, up 2 to the left 1, etc., all the way through. Next, we have to figure out if it's a dashed or solid line. Since it's not equal to, we would use a dashed line. All the way through. Okay, and then we'll have to determine where to shade. Remember, when we determine where to shade, we have to pick a test point. So if we pick our test points, I would pick 0, 0. Plug in 0 for y, plug in 0 for x, we get 0 greater than -5, which is true. So we're going to shade the region towards our point. Now I'm not going to shade, I'm just going to draw a little arrow at the end of my line so I know that it is going to be shaded that way. Then I'll graph my other line and we'll figure out where to shade. So we'll start at 3 for our y-intercept, and our slope is 1 over 1. So plot all these points. And our line will be solid because it is equal to. So just draw a straight line through these points. Hopefully yours is a little better than mine. Okay, then we have to figure out where to shade. So by plugging 0, 0 again, is 0 less than 3? Yes, so we will shade the region toward that point. So when we go to shade this, it has to be above or to the right of our red line and below our blue line. So we'll just shade this region here. So for this one, you first have to solve our first equation for y. When you do that, you should get y is less than -2/3 x plus 2. So go ahead and graph both those lines. If you notice, we have the same slope, different y-intercepts, so we'll have parallel lines. And when you graph those, we should be shading opposite each line. So we'll have a line at 4, and we'll shade above here, and the line at 2, and we'll shade down below it. This next one, if you notice, we have a line and an absolute value. So for the first one, I'll graph that line, y less than or equal to 3. So it's going to be a straight horizontal line through the y value of 3. And it's less than, so shade below. And our next one is absolute value. So if you remember absolute value, if it's inside absolute value, you got to move to the left or to the right and take the opposite sign. So we move to the left 4. And our slope is 1, so you go up 1 over 1. On both sides, remember absolute value is in the shape of a V. Okay, and it is a dashed line. It's showing up there. There we go. And then when it is greater than for an absolute value, that means we shade on the inside of it. So shade on the inside but below our blue line, so this part here will be shaded. So go ahead and graph these two. Remember, solving them out for y should get y greater than negative x minus 3 and y less than 6x plus 1. Don't forget both our lines are dashed. And once you graph them, it should be shaded in this region here. So we have a line and absolute value sign here. Your vertex for your absolute value should be at 5, 0. And again, we'll shade below the line, but inside the absolute value. And our last one, we'll have an upside down absolute value with our vertex at negative 2, 0. And we'll be shading above our line, but inside our absolute value. And we're working on this tomorrow in class.